Hey, welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. I wasn't going to do one today. I was just getting ready to head out into this beautiful day of freezing rain, and I thought I had gotten all of our Christmas lights done, but we had two more people want them up, so I guess we're going to go out and see if the ice holds off long enough. But as I was checking through the comments on did one the other day on overcoming fear. And I got a ding, and a new comment came in. It was from Kurt Harris, uh, one of our great commenters, and I get a lot of communication from him in other ways too. Thank you, Kurt. Great guy with great thoughts. And he asked me, he says, I think he asked her, I don't remember if it was a statement or a question, something about how do I get over my disgust at the national political leaders and wannabes? And and of course I said I don't know how to do that. I'd extend that not just to national, but to many state and local as well. But he brings up a good question, and that is one of the reasons. And of course, we don't want to give up our disgust. We want to use that disgust. We want to use that disgust to spur us on, and we want to spread it and try to get other people to share that disgust as we try to push back against what's going on. One of the well, one I think of the foundational avenues to what's happened today, what's going on today, is our lack, or not ours, but the lack of a communal disgust uh, about the kind of behavior, the kind of things that are going on. That's been growing over a period of years to become this idiocy that we see around us today. There's and I forget. I think that it was Daniel Patrick Moynihan. You older people will remember him. Actually, a good Democrat. Disagree on some social issues, but he really was a thinker on this, and I think that it was he who coined the phrase "defining deviancy down." Now, if I'm wrong on that, somebody correct me, but I think that it was Moynihan who said that, and he had some other good comments too. Um, oh, speaking of which, let me jump in here right now and say that any of you, I just put up an excellent interview over on Patreon where Mark Levin was interviewing Walter Williams. For those of you who haven't heard yet, Walter Williams passed yesterday. If you're, most of you, I'm sure, are familiar with Williams. He was a great thinker. He was a professor of economics at George Mason University. Great thinker and writer on liberty. We lost a giant when we lost him, and I hope we've got some real thinkers coming up to replace these people that we're losing now. Because if we don't, we're in more trouble than we think. But there is an excellent. If you're not over on Patreon yet, it's worth the dollar just to hear this one. And he talks about the law, what liberty is, and the potential loss of liberty here. So we mourn the passing of Williams, and go watch that. It'll either support you or illuminate you. So back to this, defining deviancy down. Where we've gotten today didn't come overnight, as you know. It's been incremental. It's the water torture, the drip by drip by drip, the little things that were accepted by a society, and many times by each of us. Some things were so small we just didn't think that it was worth fighting about. We thought it was so silly it would never catch on. Many of us, you probably included, as craziness came up years and years ago, we would laugh at it and say, "Oh my gosh, can you believe that somebody thinks that. They'll be laughed out of town, and it's just so funny, right? Well, all of a sudden now 150 million people think that way. And it happened little by little by little. We let this stuff seep in the cracks, not thinking that those cracks were very important. Um, I tell a story in one of my books, and it actually it was a story that I used to tell my the people who worked for me at my gym about the importance of taking care of little things when they were still little things. And it's in one of my books. I forget which one it is. It's either the revival or the renewal, and it's a couple meeting with a pastor, and they're ready to get married, and the pastor asks uh, the fathers, or the father of the girl, and Jim, who is the uncle of Christian who's getting married, if they have any advice. And I used that character to pass this on, and I forget which character said this, but they talked about marriage, and you can translate this over to a country, any kind of relationship. They said a marriage is like going down a river with someone else in a canoe, and each person gets a paddle and an ice pick, and as long as everybody's using their paddle properly, you're in good shape. You're going to be able to navigate. You're working together. Each of you has, if you've canoed, you know that the person in front has a kind of a different task than the one in back. Neither is more important than the other. They're both important to make that canoe go where that canoe is supposed to go. Um, but if you're up front and you're paddling and you're doing your job, and all of a sudden it's not going the way that it should, and you look back there, and this is the first step. You look back, and the person in back is just kind of laying back. Their paddle's laying in the bottom of the canoe. They're just kind of dozing, looking around, and expecting you to be handling everything. Do you ignore it, or do you say, "Hey, pick up that paddle and do your job. You are supposed to be an equal part of this, and you're supposed to be working, toward this common purpose with me." And, maybe they will, maybe they won't. The next step after that, and this is what we've seen with our society, is that instead of using that paddle, that person picked up the ice pick, and they started poking little holes in the bottom of your canoe. Now, these little holes, these little pokes of the ice pick in a marriage or a friendship or a relationship of any kind, those are the little barbs, the little asides, the little snarkiness, the little things like this, and any one of which can be overlooked, and too many people do. But at what point do you tell them, stop putting holes in my canoe? And the funny thing is, very often they don't realize, well, they wouldn't. Maybe that's wrong, because there are a lot of self-destructive people in the world, and a lot of people, when things are going too well, they're not used to it, and they're not comfortable with it, and so they're going to make a big failure because they're more comfortable with failure than they are with success. That gets into a whole different spectrum of psychology, doesn't it? But it's certainly a reality for some. But anyway, you stop them. You stop them, because the time to stop any problem is when it starts. And people accuse me of jumping all over little stuff when it seems like it's not big enough to jump over, and that's simply because everything big starts with something little, and the easiest place to stop it is when it's little. But anyway, back to this is that our country, as we defined deviancy down, getting back to Moynihan, we said that, well, those first it was okay when half the country laid their paddle down. Okay, all right, okay, we'll accept that, we'll excuse that, just because it's not big, and it's not a big, it's not worth arguing over, and we can still get it done. We'll keep paddling. We'll just keep paddling harder. Yeah, well, that's the lesson from Atlas Shrugged. And it's something with which I always disagreed with Rush Limbaugh when he said, "Well, the rest of us will just work harder." No, we need to we need to fight back and say, "Hey, we're not working harder to support you." Well, now we're getting into separatism, and that's not what this is about right now. And then, so we looked at and we just paddling harder, right? Doing more work while this other person behind us just laid back here and watched the trees go by while we're going down the river. But then, they took that ice pick and they poked a hole in the bottom of the canoe. And maybe we thought, well, okay, we can make it down the river, with one little hole, in the canoe. And it's just not worth, fighting about. Or we said something and they just, rah, 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 came back at us. And you go, oh my gosh, well, here I am stuck in this canoe. It's just me and them. They're the only person that I've got here. And so I guess I'll just live with it. I'll stick it out for a little while. And then you hear another poke and you look back and there's two holes in your canoe, At what point do you throw them out? What point do you throw them out? Well, I'd say after one or two, right? At least. Well, we defined a deviancy down as a society, and every hole that got poked in our canoe was accepted. We may have argued, but our argument on our side didn't take the day. And we tried to get them to see the folly of their actions. And we tried to get them to stop. But they wouldn't, because they had another interest. It was a different interest than ours. They did not have an interest in a successful boat ride. That makes me think of the Missouri boat ride out of Josie Wales. But they did not have the same interest that we did in paddling that canoe on a successful journey to a mutually agreed upon location. That makes sense? And we didn't realize it. We thought, well, how could they not want that? How could they not want success? How could they not want to work together to get this done? The fact of the matter is that they just didn't. They had a totally different agenda. And now our canoe is more than halfway full of water. It is harder. You ever tried to paddle a canoe or a boat or anything when it's half full of water? Okay. And you're not getting, you're trying to bail water out. You're trying to paddle. Well, I mean, I haven't in this situation. I never rode in a canoe where people were poking in holes. This is a metaphor, right? But I have been out there when the canoe is half full of water, and mainly what you do in that case is you capsize that thing and you flip it back over dry, or mostly. You flip it over, and there's a way to do that, and right it again, and put that canoe back in the water. You climb back in, and then you don't let that other person back in, right? And then you try to patch those holes. Well, this is the disgust. We defined deviancy down because we didn't have or express or execute our feeling of disgust with each one of those little holes that they're poking in our country. And now we got a problem. We have a big problem. Okay. We've got a canoe full of half full of water. And when it's half full of water, it's almost, it's really tough to right that thing. Sometimes you just, I don't know what you do. You let it go. You jump out yourself, right? You make it to shore and start over again, and you let that person who was bound and determined to destroy that canoe, you let them go with it right down into the rapids and right into the rocks. Because it's what's going to happen. So this is an excellent, Kurt's, again, thanks, Kurt, question. How do I get over the disgust that I have with political leaders and wannabes? You don't. And he knew that. I mean, that's it was a rhetorical question. It was a funny question, but I think it's great that he brought that up because we need to be reminded. We don't want to get back. If we have let any of our disgust dwindle away, we need to get it back. We need to be so disgusted. We need to recognize how bad things are and how disgusting things are, or else we're not going to fight against it. Okay? If we just slough it off and let it go, well, it's just going to get worse. Right? And we endanger ourselves as those people who are endangering us just go about their merry way, taking themselves into a catastrophe that they can't foresee because they don't have the foresight. Okay, so disgust. We should have it. We should not get over it. We should build it. We should recognize it. We should spread it. We should explain it. Did I say express it? I think I did. If I didn't, express it. And get out there and start being more vocal. Not just vocal, but doing things, actual things that will fight against these disgusting movements and situations in our country. This is our country. And we need to take it back. And I know that I've said before that I don't have a lot of hope. And I do not have hope for the United States of America continuing as it is. I think that's done. And people say, well, what do you have hope for? I have hope for a new beginning. A new America, whatever. I know a lot of you join me in this. And there's no simple answer. There's no easy answer. It's simply the process. But our disgust in what's going on now should be the motor behind our actions. So anyway, thanks again, Kurt. Your rhetorical question really spurred some thought. Y'all get on here and put your comments, because I know that you're going to have some great comments on this one, and put in your advice on how to do this. Now, no violence, nothing like that. No violence towards other or any government or anything like that. Put in advice that comes short of that, okay? Thank you, because I just have to remove those others. Nothing personal against you. I just have to remove them. See if there was something. Seems like there was something that just slipped out of my brain. Let's see what it was. Oh yeah, and if you want to see it, go over and see that Walter Williams over there. I think you can probably find it somewhere. I know you can find it on YouTube. That's where I got it, right? But it's worth it. Go over and watch that. It's worth $1 to go over there, and then if you don't like it, you can. I mean, if you don't want to hang around for the rest of the stuff, and there's more stuff over on Patreon than there is on YouTube. And if this is a subject that is important to you, this disgust and what to do about it, you'll probably want to stay over there because we talk about more things over there. So I'll let you go. I kind of rambled on for a little bit, but it was a great question to bring up, and it's something we need to think about and kind of, we need to light the fire a little bit brighter. So remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow, and preparation means fuel for a motor, and disgust is a great motor. Okay. So you all have a great day, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.